Involved in the debacle at KPMG is planning to wrap up its efforts in the next 5 months.
The South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, SAICA, has today announced a probe into several of its members that worked at the beleaguered auditing firm. It will be conducted by an independent panel of senior lawyers and accountants and chaired by advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza. SAICA says phase 1 has kicked off, calling for written submissions.
Now, these will be reviewed in December and January next year in Phase 2. Now, Phase 3 will see the inquiry hearing testimony, and the goal is to release findings by April next year. KPMG has lost several clients after it was accused of aiding the controversial Gupta family in dodgy dealings. It has denied, though, criminal wrongdoing, but admitted that it could have been more skeptical during audits with Gupta-linked companies. KPMG has also retracted part of a report into the so-called rogue unit at SARS. Now, to talk to us a little bit more about this inquiry, I'm now joined by the man who's going to be chairing it, Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme, Advocate. So this is a big inquiry, lots of interest being shown in this, and some people would be saying, is an inquiry of this nature necessary for something that perhaps SAICA could have done in their normal course?
Well, I suppose it is precisely because of the public interest that has been generated by all the allegations that have been made, not only against KPMG as an auditing firm, but also the allegations that impact on members of SAICA who have been employed by KPMG or who continue to be in KPMG. And the attitude that SAICA has taken is that it wouldn't assist either it as an institution from a reputational perspective or its members who are employees at KPMG or who are employees at any of these auditing firms simply to do nothing when there are allegations of possible wrongdoing and which may have impacted on one or more or many members of SAICA who are employed by KPMG. And therefore they felt that instead of conducting the normal inquiry, they need to make sure that this inquiry is as transparent as it can be, it is as independent as it can be, so that there can be no allegations of cover-up, and that justifies, I suppose, in their view, that they approached me and to appoint people who, by their very statuses in society, would be conducting an inquiry that would be independent even of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants itself.
All right, we'll talk a little bit about the various phases that you're going to be taking over the next 5 months. But you've sat on a number of inquiries, some very, very high profile. I'm just wondering about this one, because it's instituted by an independent body, just how much legal power and standing does the inquiry have? Well,
it has got standing because it is in terms of the prescripts which govern the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. You will know that it is a voluntary association, but it obviously has got accreditation from the regulatory body. What our terms of reference have given us in this fact-finding inquiry is an ability to be able to determine whether more than just infringements of the ethical codes of SAICA have been committed. For instance, in one of the terms of references, we have been given the power to refer to law enforcement agencies any evidence that we could have unearthed. Let's say, for instance, in the course of our inquiry, we discover that on a prima facie basis, one member or more in the employ of KPMG, who is a member of SAICA, has been involved in money laundering. And you will know that since there have been these revelations of state capture that, this, that, and the next thing, there's been a lot of allegations of how money has been laundered out of the country, or how money has been used for purposes for which it was not intended. Now, if I, as a lawyer, and Galwana SC, who I've brought on board also as a lawyer, are able to determine that on the basis of evidence that we have gathered, there is not only an indication of unethical conduct, but there is also an indication of the commission of crimes or offenses, the nature of which warrant a referral to law enforcement agencies. Without fear, favor, or prejudice, we will make those recommendations and determinations. In fact, it will not be more than just recommendations.
All right, so take us kind of how you're going to go about it. So we've mentioned some of the phases. Right now, you're just gathering evidence from people who might have something to say. Is that phase one? What happens next?
Well, phase one is kind of two-pronged. Firstly, from the general public, we would be expecting that, you know, there would be people who say, now that, you know, KPMG is in the news for having done A, B, C, D, and E, we recall as an individual that there's something that happened to me. Let me go there. Let me send a statement. So we are going to be expecting people to make submissions on anything that they think would be falling within our terms of reference. Where people feel that they were wronged, where people feel that things that were untoward, you know, happened to them. That is this next phase. That is the one leg of it. The other leg, of course, would be, and especially if KPMG cooperates with our inquiry in the process, would be where KPMG itself identifies to us those audits or those investigative processes that have given rise to some controversies. You will know, for instance, that one of the audits that have given rise to some controversy is the so-called SARS audit. Now, that audit would give our inquiry panel an ability to inquire into exactly what it is that was wrong, that was done by members of SAICA who were in charge of that audit.
All right.
Because the audit
Advocate, we're running out of time, unfortunately, but I do have to ask you one last question, because the Independent Regulatory Board of Auditors is busy with an inquiry itself, and I'm just worried about overlap or both of you doing the same thing. And to be clear, you are looking at the conduct of individual auditors, because that's what SAICA does, and then the Independent Regulatory Board will be looking at the conduct of the firms. Or is there going to be a point at which you're both going to be looking at the same things?
Well, I can disclose now that there was a time in the run-up to this inquiry when there was a difference of opinion, until we settled that by giving a legal opinion to SAICA, which legal opinion was shared with IRBA and which I understand IRBA accepted, where we clarified that in terms of our constitution, in terms of SAICA's constitution, and in terms of their ethical code, even in terms of the APA, which is the act that governs the regulating body itself, there is nothing that prevents SAICA from conducting an inquiry. I am one of those people who would like to see more cooperation between these two institutions than rivalry or competition. And I think we are well placed to be able to manage that. I don't think there's going to be a conflict, and I don't think the inquiries are going to be mutually exclusive.
All right, Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for giving us a heads up on what's going to be happening in the coming months as you try to get to the bottom of this case that has generated so much public interest.